In a time of the world where we can show up as almost anything, perhaps let's choose first and foremost to show up for each other. In this episode, we meet Wanda Montemayor and Meagan Butler, the brilliant minds of the Uvalde Love Project. Join us as we discuss healing-centered engagement and the incredible ways that art can shift the status quo and provide supportive community care. Welcome to Wondercast, a community collaborative podcast supporting families navigating the complexities of chronic illness. Wondercast is brought to you by the generous sponsorship of Texas Oncology. Texas Oncology, more breakthroughs, more victories, experts in cancer care. Today's episode explores the impact of community art therapy in promoting healing and connection. Wanda and Meagan are two of the most innovative and inspiring individuals I have ever had the privilege to visit with. Their passion for shifting the focus towards true community care, supporting strength and culture as a means to build resiliency, is sure to leave you ready to go create some healing art of your own. This is Wanda and Meagan.
Hi, my name's Wanda Montemayor, and I use she, her pronouns. I just do like to share a little bit about myself and where I came from. I am a military brat, so I lived all over the United States. I have the gift of dyslexia and dysgraphia and ADHD, and I truly, truly believe that those two components actually made me part of the person I am today. I came from a pretty standard Hispanic household. My parents really loved and nurtured me. They really helped me through my education. And also, they always made me feel like I could achieve anything I wanted to achieve. And they were first generation. You know, they always thought that my dyslexia just disappeared. But like later in life, I realized, no, it's still very much there. I started my life also as a teen mom. I worked in public schools for 23 years. And when I was an art teacher, my very, very favorite part of the day was actually after school art club. And later I realized that's really art therapy counseling groups. And I started by making murals with my after school art club. And I just noticed, how it changed the climate of the school. It not only beautified it, but the kids that participated in that after school art club really became being connected to the campus. I saw their self-esteem increase, and that led me to becoming an art therapist. I'm a licensed art therapist and play therapist, and I practice here in Austin, Texas. My company is called Community Arts, and we provide art therapy services for all ages, to adults, children, and families. When I was an art teacher, then became school counselor and art therapist, I always did my after-school art club. And my thesis was Deep Eddy. So some of you have swam at Deep Eddy. And with that, research and understanding like, oh, okay, it's not just what I intuitively learned from being an art teacher and an after school art teacher. It was like watching the connectivity with the kids, which then brought me to my journey in Uvalde, which became the Uvalde Love Project, which we're still providing services. And some of the lessons that I learned through that is art heals, and not just art, but that connected group experience of people being together and connecting. Like that is some magic right there. The murals and the community art are just like the effects. It's really the coming together and making art together. That's really the magical part.
So I'm Meagan Butler, a licensed professional counselor. And so I'm a therapist in town in Austin. Also, I work as an adjunct professor at the UT Austin School of Social Work. And I'm the Chief Care Model Officer for Lucero. It is a mental health support app for youth and families. And really, all of that work is all about changing the status quo of mental health care. That is my goal in life, is to change the mental health landscape for children and to do things differently. I started out as a 6th grade teacher teaching 8 miles from the border of Mexico, Texas-Mexico border. I ended up moving on from teaching, becoming a school counselor, and then eventually I supervised school counselors in Austin ISD as a central office administrator. did a lot of work on crisis teams and crisis plan development, a lot of work on program development, integrating applied neuroscience, and really just trying to think about things differently. There's a real history of the status quo, and it's not always helpful or developmentally appropriate. And so that's what I love about your podcast, is that you are exploring different modalities and different ways that people can find healing.
Now, because I love kind of finding the little interconnections that bring us all together, how did you and Wanda come together?
Wanda, what do you want to say about that?
Oh, I didn't know if that was a question for Meagan. Okay, well, Meagan used to be the director of counselors in AISD, and I was a school counselor, and I immediately loved Meagan Butler because our professional developments were engaging and kinetic. And the other thing that Meagan's team did was they brought TBRI training, trust-based relational intervention training, to our campus, and also learning like the neurosequential model, which was like, and we became immediate friends, and we did some trainings. Like Meagan invited me to work with her on some trainings for the district because, you know, art therapy, we're a very small group of human beings. And we actually both share a Counselor of the Year title for AISD, which was one of the happiest moments of my life. But Meagan, what else do you want to share about that?
Yeah, I think one of my roles as secondary counseling coordinator was to go from school to school and find the best practices, find the best strategies, and then share them district-wide. And so when you visited Wanda at her school, you know, in her counseling program, wellness counseling program, she has been innovating and delivering the highest quality of care of any counselor. It's why she won Austin IC Counselor of the Year. But I said, how can we get this to more people? More people need to be doing what Wanda's doing. So that's part of, you know, I've always admired Wanda and wanted her message to get to more people and her strategies to get to more people. She's truly an innovative, creative genius. And I mean that authentically. I really do. And the way she goes about things is different. And that's also part of what made us friends, is that we're both trying to break the status quo together.
Pretty special. And I love that you found each other in one role and have continued to foster the incredible art and healing that you are sharing with the world through the various work that you both do individually and together. So I love it. So for this first part, I would love to kind of talk to Wanda for a minute. You talk about this incredible support that you do through healing-centered engagement. And clinically, we understand what that is, but I would love for our listeners to get a little bit of a breakdown on what you mean when you say healing-centered engagement.
Yeah. Meagan taught me about healing-centered engagement through her research and her PhD. So I feel like nervous doing the explanation.
You can tag team. You can tag team each other.
Okay, good. We'll tag team. Healing-centered engagement through art therapy and community work for me is really looking at people who've gone through hard experiences need a different approach. And that's also what I learned with TBRI, trust-based relational intervention, is that it's bottom-up care. Healing-centered engagement takes that clinical term away. Like, people don't want to be like, I'm traumatized, right? So instead of saying trauma-informed, healing-centered engagement, first of all, looks at people who've gone through hard experiences and looks at their strengths. And that's what I love. It's like no longer pathologizing, like, you're traumatized. It's more like, okay, a hard thing happened, right? That doesn't define you. Now let's come together and look at the strengths that we all share. And as a clinician, like, I'm not going in telling you what you need. Yes, I have a specific tool set that I'm going to share, but you guys have a million tools too that we can come together and use. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, the concept comes from Dr. Sean Ginwright, who's now at Harvard. He termed that idea of healing-centered engagement. And one other piece to add on to what Wanda was saying is that it is absolutely strengths-based, and it also incorporates culture, right? So culture is a foundational piece of this model. And so building an idea of meaning making and self-perception and purpose and using our strengths to collectively come together and embrace our culture to make things better. And that's really different than the status quo. The status quo oftentimes has a expert health provider come in and try to fix the problem, right? We have a medical model set up that's very much like here's a problem. We have an expert that fixes it. This flips it on its head, where it says, actually, I'm not going to look at your trauma, your pathology. I'm going to look at your strengths and say, what do you want to create together? What do you want to dream together? What do you want to experience together to improve healing? It's a totally different approach.
It is. And it's such a refreshing approach. It makes me wonder, why doesn't everyone do it that way? Why can't that be the new status quo?
We're trying to start a revolution where this is the new status quo, where it's about community strengths and culture.
So Wanda, can you talk to me a little bit about the community care and kind of what your programs, how do murals, how have you seen that connect communities in the work that you've done?
Yeah. Coming together, even when we make murals at like Deep Eddy, it's always been about the process. And yes, you happen to have a beautiful product. And it really like leaned in on the strength of the leaders. So Deep Eddy was a community art therapy engagement where we did numerous workshops with nonprofits like Big Brothers Big Sisters, CIS, Safe Place Austin, right? But then I also enlisted the art teachers, like bring in an art teacher and you touch every child on campus in elementary school, right? And elective teachers touch the most kids on campus. And I was an art teacher, so that's my language. So that was my strength. Like I understood the art teacher, right? And then I learned how to understand the school counselor and school system. So even before Deep Eddy, when I was at Fillmore, now Lively, it was enlisting the kids to come up with the design, because all the murals that we did at Lively and at O'Henry included every person on campus, including the custodians, the cafeteria workers, the secretaries, the guidance counselors, like everybody got to participate, all the paraprofessionals, all the professionals, we were all equal, right? And then the little hubs of kids creating that and then delivering the tiles, it was like this relationship that began. So I even think about, the murals that we did at Fillmore, and you could see also some of them at like Barton Hills Elementary, YMCA, Oak Hill. It usually began with an idea, and then it became all of these connected, beautiful moments. And my murals are mosaic. I utilize clay. I also saw the healing effects of just like even what clay began and the playfulness. Creating playful, connected experiences are healing, right? Creates resiliency. Like we can't like not echo that. And when I look at Deep Eddy and I look at that, the largest outdoor swimming pool, and then the mosaic I did at Deep Eddy, I think to this day, it may have changed, is the largest exterior mosaic. And I gave those teachers a little chunk, and then they brought it back to their campus, and then all of those of their students and their children made tiles. To this day, I still get stopped at Central Market or wherever I am, and they're like, "You were my art teacher." The first question I ask them, like, "Did you make a tile with me?" And almost universally, they're like, "Yes." It was like a way for people to become a part of a conversation and become a part of that community forever and ever. And that's also part of it. So there's a visual representation of that connected moment that we had together that makes a beautiful picture. It's like the stories of those kids and those teachers and those people is a part now of the tapestry of the community.
Which is so beautiful. And I think about so many of our listeners or the families that we support through Wonders and Worries here in Austin are adults facing chronic illness of some sort. So that could be cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all sorts of chronic illnesses. Yes, they have trauma. Yes, they have stress, right? Chronic illness affects the entire family. We know this. But using it as an opportunity to focus on their strengths and kind of change that status quo and talking about how this experience is bringing out strengths in their children and their supportive families and in the person themselves that are facing the diagnosis. I think that's such a refreshing approach. And I love how then tiles and art and just different communities can come together and then help change that story and make it into one of resiliency.
Yeah, that's it.
Meagan, I would love for you to share a little bit about applied neuroscience. I know that was so much of your studies was focused on that. And I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about that concept.
Sure. We used to approach folks when we're thinking about, how can we reach a brain to try to help someone, right? We used to approach things in a very talk forward way, right? And Wanda mentioned bottom up earlier. So she was referencing this. We used to say, hey, let's just have a conversation. Let's talk about what's hard, right? What we've learned through neuroscience is that people have to be regulated. They have to be calm and focused enough to actually engage in those conversations. And so their prefrontal cortex, that's that learning, thinking, logic part of the brain, is not always fully operating at the right level. And so we've got to be regulated before we can start to have those conversations. I was trained in the neurosequential model by Dr. Bruce Perry. And so one of the sequence of engagements, that's a huge piece for us, is really that idea of regulate, relate, reason. And so if you're trying to reach a child and trying to, have a conversation that's reflective or about healing or about strategy building, you have to go in the right order. You cannot start with talking first. You've got to be regulated. Then you relate and you feel connected and seen and heard. And then you can actually start those problem solving learning conversations. So the regulations is so important for kids. And we found time and time again, people show up in a trauma situation, crisis situation, and they want to jump straight to the talking. Someone says, oh, I've heard you've had this, horrible cancer diagnosis. And let's talk about it. And that person is so dysregulated, they're not ready to talk yet. So what's amazing about what Wanda has done is she gives people raw clay in their hands. That in itself is literally the ground in their hands. It's grounding. Right? And that's regulating. They can roll the clay, they can move it, they can press it, they can start moving their bodies. That's regulating. We also give kids food and water, and we play music at 80 beats per minute. All of that is regulating. Then we sit them by developmental age and we say, hey, let's connect with your peers. Let's all say our names. Let's go around a circle. We're starting to relate to each other. So before we're talking about anything hard, we're regulating, then we're connected. And then, and only then, will there be space for learning, reflection, processing. So that concept of go in the right way, that's just one very small part of applied neuroscience. But there's a lot of these concepts about how the brain works and how you can access a fully integrated brain. One thing I also love about Wanda, you were talking earlier about the mosaic and the strengths. And I just think it's still is amazing to me. When you think about the concept of mosaic, a lot of people think of like the broken shards of tiles and things, right? It's also broken. But the idea is like, that is not brokenness. You can all come together and create this beautiful picture. That's the relationship between those people as well. Like the tiles relate to each other. There's regulation in making them, and there's a relationship in creating them.
As you're working with these families with making these tiles, or the teachers that are doing it and then bring them back to you, do they ever share with you that there were some kids or even adults that just kind of perseverated on that? That's not how I want it to look, or I can't get it right, or it's not the right shape. How did you approach that with them for our parents that might be listening at home thinking, I would love to do some sort of connected activity with my community, but my child is very focused on it being perfect, those performers. How did you address that with them?
So perfectionism is its own little nugget, right? Usually perfectionism is a manifestation of anxiety, and clay actually is perfectly imperfect. One of the messages that we always bring is come exactly how you are. Like you're perfect the way you are right now. For parents who are worried, or like people who are worried, that's also the beautiful thing about mosaic is that you just put another little piece there and you can add and take away. It's also kind of interesting that you say that, because a lot of times I have people who volunteer, who aren't therapists, who are just artists. And one of the trainings that we do is how it doesn't matter how the client's tile is, because it's really about the moment they share with you. We always give a demo and our shapes are contained. But I promise you, if I give you a kid a tile, they're going to want to squish it and make it thinner. They're going to want to punch a bunch of holes in it. And that's okay. That's their experience, right? On our Uvalde Love page, so there's multiple different pages, we even had lesson plans that help art teachers who wanted to do a tile for Uvalde. Like, first of all, how do you talk about a school shooting, with your after school art club to make tiles? Or how do you talk about, in your case, how do you talk about chronic illness and make a tile for that? The beauty is that that's not even what you talk about. Talking about chronic illness is going to come out when you're making tiles together. Talking about the hard things is going to come later. You have to be connected and trust the person. So when I work with artists who are volunteering at a community art therapy project, The message is whatever they make is going to be okay. It'll be fine. So if the tile breaks, then the tile breaks. If the tile's too thick, then the tile's too thick. Our mural is going to be perfectly imperfect. We're going to have tiles of all shapes and sizes, and that's going to be okay. We'll make it work. If a tile is damaged too much, that little person or that big person may not even be able to find it. What's really going to matter is how you connect with them while they're making the art and noticing what they're doing and noticing their story that they're sharing with you. You don't have to pry. And when people were working with our community and our teachers in Uvalde, I gave very strict rules on, this is about them. This is about sharing that beautiful moment with them. Whatever they bring is what they bring. Like, don't make them take care of you. You're the holder, you're the container for this moment.
Share a little bit about Uvalde Love Project and kind of how that came to be. I know that people listening maybe in other communities might be thinking, gosh, I would love to start something like that in my own space. Talk about some of the great milestones you had with that.
I'm super grateful for Meagan Butler. Remember I told you I have the ADHD dyslexia thing? I noticed how the shift changed and how the climate changed in my communities. So we actually have a beautifully written playbook that Meagan and I did together. And it really outlines all the steps on it. If you're like, I would like to make a healing-centered engagement project with my community, we have that template for you on the Uvalde Love page. It's uvaldelove.com. But let me tell you a little bit about that project in particular. After the tragedy happened almost 2 years ago, May 23rd, where 21 people lost their lives to a school shooting. 4 months later, well, actually, I'm going to give you the Wanda story, okay?
I'm ready. WandaVision. Here we go.
WandaVision. Let me tell you the WandaVision story. Dolores Montemayor, my mother, called me the day afterwards because she's been with me my whole life, right? My mom is like my best cheerleader. She goes, Wanda, you have to do a mural in Uvalde. And I go, Mom, because I was a teacher. I was an educator. And at that time, I'd only been out of the school district 1 year. I'm my second year not working in a school. I was like, Mom, too soon. Too soon. Because it's every educator and parent's nightmare, right? I couldn't look at that. And then later, the American Art Therapy Association asked our local chapter, South Texas, that's a part of our chapter area. They said, we'd really like to sponsor a project in Uvalde. And they had a different vision and they did end up sponsoring ours. But I went down there and their vision was a little bit more status quo, go in, give them individual therapy. But my vision was, first of all, and me and Meagan could talk about this, is like, what do they need? Let's us not assume what they need. Yes, my gift is doing community art therapy and running group counseling, but let's just see what Uvalde needs, right? So it was about 3 months later. So a lot of resources had already been flooded in. We went down there and we met with the child's advocate for those children that, were injured, just the child's advocate. Like, let's start with that. And also they already had some beautiful painted murals. Let's talk with Abel Ortiz, who has been leading their mural projects, which is much different. It's like an artist making a mural versus a community mural, right? So we went down there, we did a needs assessment. What would you like? And a lot of times they're like, I don't know, what do you got? So I was like, here's something that I've done. It touches a lot of lives. It leans in directly with your talent, which is the art educators. And so we just started in that aspect. What do you need? And then we went in. And then we had the challenge of connecting through to the schools, which we did. It wasn't just necessarily the public school art teachers, it was also the private school because Sacred Heart went from 40 children to 120 children immediately the next school year. So how can we support all the children and families in Uvalde? And then we also, based on what they needed, we began Tacos and Tiles, which was group counseling for children and families that was in person. So we were providing art therapy, and it wasn't necessarily like, let's just go straight to making a mural. It was like, let's create this mural together. The other crazy thing about Uvalde was that there were no mosaics in the town. The picture of Uvalde is 15,000 people. It's a small urban town near the border of Texas, right? That used to be a segregated community, which I also learned all of these things. We actually did our mural in a classically segregated park called the Garden of Heroes, but all the locals call it the Mexican park, which was really hard for me, but that's how everybody calls it because it was a segregated park where children played. It was next to a field. That began our journey.
What resistance did you run into in the community with that at all? Was there resistance?
Well, I think the biggest resistance out the door was we were a stranger. And so that led us to meeting Sister Dolores. So me and Sister Dolores, we talked on the phone and like we won each other's hearts, right? Because she believed in play for the children. You have to play. You play in art is how you talk to children. Play is children's first language, and children make art before they write. That is their initial form. And you just have to trust the child and knowing what they need. And so we talked and we fell in love with each other. And it was like the Sister Dolores and my mother. It was like they were listening to each other. She vetted us. And we also understood that the community, a big wall against certain things, of course, media, there was a lot of trauma associated with the media. And so we went in incredibly transparent, like, here's what we can offer. And also we brought tacos, we brought fun, we brought play, we let the children instigate their language and the conversations while we brought specific art therapy interventions that led to that kind of dialogue. We also brought in bilingual therapists that were working with the parents. And then we moved into making tiles. So the schools were making tiles, we were running workshops. Also in different events, different community events, not just with the teachers. And then it all came together. And it was beautiful seeing everyone collaborate. So we saw the parents painting and glazing the children's tiles. We saw the children making their tiles, right? It was like collaborative all along the way.
And Meagan, were you there the whole time for that project as well?
Yeah, Wanda invited me to be on the team from the beginning. So, from the initial needs assessment to developing the project plan to I was one of the therapists in a lot of those sessions. We had 8 therapists who all had experience in working with children and families. Honestly, it was the most impactful work I've ever done in my entire life because I saw the status quo change in our model and I saw the effects of it, right? We had a lot of folks that were really hesitant to go to therapy. They were really just cautious. One key thing I really came away with was that building trust takes a lot of time, right? So much of the status quo wants to go fast, like come in and fix the problem. And really with so many of these issues, it's going to be year after year. This is a long-term process. And so building that trust and taking the time that we invested in a whole year in just the first part of the mural making, and the services are still being offered. But that first mural, that was a whole year of work of multiple sessions, dozens and dozens and dozens of sessions with the same people showing up each time. So they got to know us. That's so important. It's not a one and done thing where, oh, we did it. Okay, it's done. It's like, no, we're going to keep showing up throughout the year, throughout the holidays, right? We're there at Christmas with the posadas. We're there at Valentine's Day. We're there at Mother's Day. Like we kept showing up. And so that people got to know us. It was about 1.5 years later that one of the teachers said, I trust you now. It took 1.5 years, right? That's a big honor for a teacher to tell me that. But that's the amount of time it takes. So we move at the speed of trust, and that takes a long time.
I just have so many thoughts running through my head right now. Most of it is just, I'm in awe of, one, the community's resiliency, right? To take something that's still so raw and so fresh and be able to once again put that trust in strangers, which is what you started as. And then to see it grow into this incredible community project that's still continuing to give new life to this community in different ways. I think it's a model that a lot of people could stand behind. And so we will direct them 100% to your website so they can find how you did it, because I feel like that's how it should be everywhere. Now, one of the things we did touch on that I do want to expand upon a little bit is this concept of finding out what kids need. And I think that is a status quo that we don't make time for. And I would love for either one of you to share a little bit on that needs-based assessment versus what we're taught originally to do, which is just talk and treat.
We've learned a lot from trust-based relational intervention. And so one of the first things we always did, and Wanda was so great at designing kind of a session flow. But the first thing we do is we check our engines, we check our energy states. That's one of the best ways to figure out what does a kid need, right? What's your energy level? Just asking them that. Is it high energy? Is it medium or balanced energy, or is it low energy? Just by asking your energy level, not asking about your mood, I'm just asking about your energy, you can start to say, okay, what might this child need? right? If I'm feeling really too high energy to be in this space or too low energy, I might be able to offer them something that can help them have that brain state change. So I think like finding out what a kid needs, knowing that neuroscience, knowing their energy level, that's such a key factor. So often therapists jump into, well, tell me how you feel. It's like, well, if they're not in the balanced mid energy, they may not be able to tell you how they feel yet, right? That's the first thing that kind of hopped out at me. What about you, Wanda?
Yeah, and actually I love that you brought this question. That's why Meagan was such a critical part of our team, was because not only did Meagan like respond to a million crises all over the district, right? So Meagan saw the fails and she also saw the things that were successful. And so by asking like, how do we figure out like how or what kids need? I think it goes back to they need positive, loving relationships, like over and over. And until that need is met. And also, I think it's like a lot of times teachers, parents, therapists, attachment is so important. That feeling of felt safety is like, we can't conquer the fact that you're not using the restroom. We can't conquer the fact that you're not sleeping in your bed until you feel connected to a person. And hopefully that person is in your household. And, and if that person in your household is also experienced a hard thing and is having a hard time connecting with the kid, it's like, it's not just like, let's focus on the kid. It's like, we need to focus on the entire system, right? We need to focus on the teachers, on having patience and understanding and recognizing that kid. We need to focus and then also hyping and building up those teachers because they have 35 kids in their classroom and they're like, I understand, I want to give this kid love, but I got 34 other kids that I'm having a hard time. It's all of those little things. Let's just start with that positive, loving relationship and then building up all of those adults so they can give that kid that love.
And like building onto that, there's a line from trust-based relational intervention that says, see the need, meet the need, right? So it's always about see the need under the behavior. So often we're trying to smash down problem behaviors instead of trying to figure out and approach it with curiosity to go, what might this child need, right? We see something like explosive behavior, disruptive behavior, and really there's an underlying need under there. We can just take the time to slow down and check in.
And for me, it's not surprising that this model is successful, especially clinically when I look at it as a child life specialist, right? Typically, child life specialists are found in children's hospitals. Wonders and Worries is unique in that it's community-based, but more than often, it's in a children's hospital where the child is the one facing an illness and you're supporting their family. But we've always said, if we want to get a true pulse on the family, you're not going to talk to the doctors that are just floating in and out at every hour. You're going to talk to the nurses because they're there day in and day out, hands-on, living life with these kids and their families. And so it makes perfect sense to me that you have a model that was derived by teachers and counselors because they are used to connecting with people from every walk of life and every culture and all socioeconomic statuses. You have people that you walk in every day and you don't know who's going to be in your classroom that next year. It could be all the needs in all one little room. And it's how do we figure out what this child needs versus what this child needs and what their family needs versus what this individual child needs. And so I think you found the right pillars is what I'm saying. You started it from the right foundation of going into the schools because that is the heartbeat of this community and all communities.
Yeah. It's also that positive, loving, engaging relationship, but then it is that positive correcting behaviors too. It's like, we want kids to have friends and connections, allowing them to have successful repeats. We call it a redo is also the magic. So when we went to Uvalde, we had a lot of dysregulated kids, right? And for sure, there's going to have some dysregulated behaviors because they're dysregulated. Also being able to use art, to use play, to use lightheartedness, to allow them to be successful in doing things right is also like the next tier, right? Because we want them to be able to connect with others. And so it's like all of these different parts and recipes, but it all starts with that connected love, that playfulness, using art, using play therapy, being culturally responsive. All of those things are important. Supporting all of the support staff is also a part of that recipe. And we did that, like we supported each other. And I think that was also a super duper important aspect of the Uvalde Love Project, was making sure none of us got compassion fatigue and making sure that we took care of each other while supporting everyone else. I have so many amazing memories, but I think one of the more magical memories was when we did it's almost like a ropes course. I brought the Uvalde art teachers to Austin so that we can assemble their 300 square foot mosaic mural that was made of all of their tiles. We used close to 1,200 pounds of clay, and we fired our kiln 62 times. So we had thousands and thousands of tiles. And I mean, this truly was a Uvalde project made and done by the people of Uvalde. And so I had the teachers and we were in the studio, and it was like this most magical moment when we glued down, and we glued down more, but it was more of a symbol where we glued down the last tile and we played "We Are the Champions," and everybody broke out in tears. And at the end, they were like, one teacher said, "I didn't think I could ever feel happy again. And I felt happy. This has made me happy." And then another teacher said, "Wanda, this is my second wind. I didn't know I had a second wind. You gave me my second wind so I could do this again for another year." And that was like the moment I was like, this is why I'm here. Right. And it was like their success, their moment. It was like the power of them and them feeling so successful and getting that win. They had a win that they felt it in their bones. That was one of my most favorite moments. That's the final piece that I think is forgotten, is that you're only as good as you can be. And so making sure that you take care of yourself and those around you.
That whole concept of that regulate is not just for children. It's for all the people, all the helpers.
Yeah. So Wanda's referencing our 4 pillars. We have applied educational neuroscience. We've got art and play therapy, strategies. You've got cultural responsive and inclusiveness. And then we've got the mindfulness. And the way we really incorporated the mindfulness was through that mindfulness of how are the caregivers caring for themselves? That was one of our main pieces, checking in with ourselves, checking in with the parents and the teachers. How are you caring for yourself? And how do you know if you're burning out? And what steps can you take to take care of each other if you notice someone else might be burning out?
Gosh, it's such a beautiful concept. And I like that it takes that family systems model and expands it even to the greater reach of the family, which is the teachers, the community, the helpers. Because you're right, they are just as important in lifting this community as helping that one child.
Yeah. And sometimes too, it's the siblings. I mean, if I can share a personal story, I have a nephew who in 4th grade was diagnosed with medulloblastoma, right? And so he went through a year and a half of cancer treatments as a 4th grader, providing care to his siblings. He had 2 siblings. So important, right? A lot of times we forget about the siblings. We forget about the parents and the caregivers and the teachers because we're so focused on the child that has cancer or has, a medical issue. And so that family system and saying this care is for everyone. It's not just for the person that's undergoing treatment. It's not just for the person that survived the school shooting. It's for everyone. And we really want to expand that idea of that the care can be for everyone, because if you strengthen the skills and abilities of the people in that child's life, they now have more models of regulation and models of self-care. Absolutely. It's an ecological model, and it's about a connected community.
So one of the things that I would love to do, because I do want to be mindful of your time, if you guys with closing want to tell me what's next for your projects you have, or maybe something that you are promoting or you're wanting our listeners to come away with.
And I was just thinking, really what I believe in is group counseling. Only 5% of counseling is done in groups, but is just as effective as individual. My company, Community Arts, we provide art therapy, group counseling, in person and virtually. And if you're feeling lonely or you're worried that your child is feeling lonely, group counseling can help them with their isolation and give them skills and give them tools, and just how powerful it is. I think I want to just really reiterate, group art therapy is a powerhouse. And it is so powerful and important and affordable and all of those other things. And if people need resources, feel free to contact us. We also have a flat water group that's going to start virtually for those people who have cancer or have a loved one with cancer. So
that's awesome.
That's, I think, where I want to plug. What about you, Meagan?
I made an app and it's for youth and caregivers called Lucero. And so this is just another way to bring these large scalable interventions to the masses, right? And that's what I'm excited about is that, people can go in the App Store and get Lucero. There's a free version for everyone. It's just a way to do emotional regulation skill building at home 24/7, right? It was designed all by therapists, but it was designed with kids. So we asked the kids, what do you need? They told us, and we made it with them. And so once again, it's this model of listening to the people that are most impacted. One of my goals is to lift up Wanda's message. Honestly, that's one of my goals, is to help lift up Wanda's message, which is, community healing matters, group art therapy matters, because I've seen it be so effective and because it's just not enough people are doing it. Honestly, that's one of my goals. And so, when I'm a professor at UT Austin, I'm constantly bringing these ideas to the social work students. I'm also bringing it to my group therapy practice that I'm at, just letting people know collective trauma requires collective healing, right? And so we've got to look at the group and absolutely celebrate group modalities.
The feeling that art heals and that you're not alone and that community matters.
Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. Please subscribe and continue to check back as our content is ever evolving. For questions or specific content-related requests, please send an email to podcast@wondersandworries.org.